There you are, my little turkeys. I wondered where you'd been. Maybe the volume of that last amp, that train wreck, scared you off a bit. Well, it would. It didn't look a very loud amp, but it can be. And that can be a sort of major problem for a lot of guys. You know, these big, well, there's one there, these big 100-watt amps, some of them are even bigger. And even a 50-watt amp, or even a 30-watt amp, as the Cherrytone Trainwreck was, isn't, well, it's nothing to be toyed with, is it? It can be very loud. I only had it through a 1x12 speaker because I daren't go any louder. So you could say, yeah, you've got to have the right place for it. So hey Tony, what's the point of buying one if you can't turn it up? If you can't crank it, well, it's never going to sound the same. And I guess you could get one of those sort of, I don't know, resistor type of things, and you bang it on the back, and it takes the volume down, but it always changes things, that does. Just in case you didn't know, anybody who's never really played through a real tube amp wouldn't know. There's a lot of people like that today. But actually the boys that are in the know that the tube amps are something, well, generally something special. So exactly what are you going to do? Well, I remember this one from a long time back. Well, not a long time, but probably a couple of years or something. This is called a tube amp expander. And what it did, it allowed you to take a 5-watt or a 1-watt amp and turn it into a 150-watt amp. But equally, it could take a 100-watt amp and turn it into a 5-watt amp. And it could add things like a loop that's got into the amp, in effect. And it also allowed for a reverb, bit of delay, speaker simulations, and things like that. So you could do an awful lot with one of these things. And of course, that's all well and good, but that wasn't that cheap. Well, nothing ever is these days. And I think with the tariffs, if they're coming from China, they're going to go up in price. But if they're not coming from China, well, you might find that the pricing's probably reasonable. So Tony, what's it all about today? Well, I've got some good news. You don't have to buy one of these tube amp expanders anymore. You can buy its baby brother. Yeah. You've seen this, maybe or not. Well, it's one of them over there, but smaller and cheaper. Now, it doesn't quite have the same features, but we're going to get into all that. And I'm going to show you this thing in a way that nobody, and I mean nobody, on YouTube ever has. They don't do it. They're all, well, we'll lend you one and we'll tell you what to say. And you say it, you record it, you put it on YouTube and give it us back. So a lot of guys will never play with one of these once they've done the review because they have to send it back. This one's been bought, so what you see in this review is exactly what I think. If I think it's rubbish, mark my words, it'll be chalked down as rubbish. If it's great, on the other hand, I'll say it's great. So what we're going to do first is get a nice close look at this. I'm going to take the lid off and we're going to have a look inside, because I think that's one of the most important aspects of any piece of gear that you can buy. And you can mark my words, this thing is going to turn your monster of an amp, of a tube amp, into something else. Okay, well, yeah, there it is. Looks great from the front. And it's not that big either. Well, just while we're talking about big, how big is it? Well, let's have a look. You get an idea across there, and an idea down there. And on the front to back, it's about 7 inches or 18 centimetres. So it's no huge beast, but it's bigger than a tiny pedal, of course. But then again, you can do a lot of things with this that the tiny pedal can't do. So that's its overall view. I'm going to go and have a look inside first before we go any further, and then we'll do the outside, the front, the back, everything else. Okay, well, I've got the lid off easy enough, and it doesn't look that difficult to me. It looks like most of Roland products, and pretty much well, very good condition inside. But we'll see about that when we get a bit closer. Let me move the unit around so you can get a sort of first off bird's eye view. Well, here we go. This one's as new to me as it is to you, by the way. First of all, we got this thing at the front here that you can play a great tune on. Hope you can hear that. Yeah, heatsink. We'll come back to that in a minute. Then you've got this backboard, which is really, well, it's the input and output board for the most part. This top one. Yeah, you don't really see that much there, but the quality of the board is, well, it's exceptional, really. I haven't checked where this one's been made yet, but we'll have a look at that in a minute. You can see there's not a lot to look at. It doesn't look as if there's much on it, actually, but there probably is. Now, there's a board just underneath it down there, and there's another board down underneath this, so I'm going to have a look a bit closer to see what we can sort of get at and what we can't. Okay, well, I have got a little bit further, but there's no huge pulling it all apart. I'm not going to really be able to do that. But you can see there's the heatsink that we were looking at earlier, and down underneath there's a pretty interesting sight. I don't know whether you can actually see down there or not. And I've got two big fat resistors here. These are 50 watts a piece, so yeah, all very nice. Yeah, they're going to do a bit of absorbing. They never likely have a heatsink on them. Yeah, while we're here, I'll just try and move that out the way a little bit so you can see those chips down on the bottom. Well, that's a sort of small portion of the little chips across there. So let's have a look at the resistors the other side of this, maybe get it a bit better. Okay, well, as you can see, they're pretty chunky things, them are. And yeah, they'll be absorbing all that power that's going to come into this unit. And yeah, go from there. I'm not easily going to be able to get around inside there without stripping the whole thing down, and it looks a bit of a job to do, so I don't think I'm actually going to do that. But I've seen some of the things that are inside here, in this side, and I have to say that some of them are very surprisingly similar to the one, the tube amp expander that's the larger one, so that should be interesting. But when it comes back to looking inside these under this board and things like that, there's far too much to pull apart. All I can say is the unit overall is very well made. Let's have a look at the other side, see if I can see anything. Well, sadly, not really. All I can say again is that it's exceedingly well made. And yeah, that's the main board under there. But it's so difficult to get to without stripping it all down. I don't really want to do that. So yeah, I'll have a look at a few pictures that we've got of the full-size tube amp expander, or TAE, and if there's anything similar, which I'm sure there will be, then I'll bring them on board too. But rest assured that the inside is really well made, and it's got a lot of controls. I'm going to put the lid back on, and then we'll have a look at the front and have a look at the back, and go from there, because this is going to be great when it's fastened on an amp. I've already tried it, and yeah, it's all rock and roll. And just before I do leave this section, there is a rotary fan, brushless fan, if you will, to keep the thing cool, because once this is being driven a lot, you can imagine how hot it could get. Yeah, well, I can. And I wouldn't like to have no fan on it, let's put it that way round. Okay, well, here we are around the front. Yeah, it's a very nice looking device, isn't it? Nice black, and the white knobs suit it absolutely perfectly. A tube amp expander core, that's what they call it. Not a mini or a micro, they call it a core. Well, I guess that's what it is. It's got a load of stuff in it. Let's have a run through what we've got on the front. You see this number 1 here, reactive load. Well, some guys might not know what that's about, but basically the reactive load feature, it generates a load on the amp that operates like a real speaker. For any tube amp, that is. There are 2 reactive load circuits in the unit, and they're designed to produce the optimal sound for each kind of tube amp. As you can see, you've got combo or stack. I tend to use mine on stack, but that's just because that's what I've got. The combo setting basically is used when connecting to a combo amp, such as a 1x12 speaker configuration, that sort of thing, or a 2x12 even. For the stack, that setting's used when you're connecting to a stack type of amp, such as a closed back cabinet, a 4x12 or whatever else you've got. I tended to stick on the stack. Now, next in line is this section here, this input sig/peak, signal/peak indicator. It indicates the level of the input signal from the tube amp to the from tube amp jack in the back, as you'll see in a moment. If it's green, it's lighting up when there's a signal present. If it's red, it lights up when there's too much signal. So if you was to put in something, I don't know, a PV mace of 160 watts into this unit, you're going to have trouble because it only handles, I believe, 100, but we'll look at the specs a bit later. Now, moving along a bit further, we've got this thing called rig. It says rig there. Well, basically, you've got a number of settings. You've got 10 different settings or different rigs or setups. We can call them whichever one you like, really. And you can configure those with an app. But there they are. Each one is a separate rig. So you could have either the loop active or this setting, or you get the idea. We'll cover it later on, don't worry, including the app, of course. So you've also got the right button, and that writes it to the location that you might be at, whichever one you fancy. It's simple so far, isn't it? Now, some of you guys might know that I've got one of those Wazacraft Tube Logic amps. It's in the other room, and there's a picture on the screen right now. Now, a lot of the features that are in that thing are sort of floating around this, and one of them is the sort of air feel. It's a sort of knob that suggests or claims that it adjusts the reverberation and feel of ambience that's output from the line-out connector, the phone's jack and the USB port. So it's a sort of, well, they call it a feel level, but I'm not entirely convinced about that. Yeah, I think the tube amp's got the feel level without adding to it. On the bottom row here, this is pretty obvious what it is. It says it is speaker out, and that's exactly what it is. It sends the power from this unit to the speakers that's generated or made inside this device, poked out through there, and it's really just like turning a volume up. And the second one along is very similar, and that's really a line out, and that adjusts the volume of the audio that's output from the line out left and right connectors on the back we're going to see in a second. And here's a connector for the phones, and that's your volume for your phones, but do note that when you plug this in, it does disconnect the speaker. Yeah, it's just something worth knowing. What else we got? Well, we've got this Tube Logic thing, more about that a bit later. We've got a power light, and we've got an on and off switch. Yeah, and we've got the all-important Wazacraft logo, I'll call it that, and it's proudly calling itself Boss. This power LED here, it's a little bit more important than you think. When it's turned on, the button lights up in blue, but you can get overheat protection kicking in this unit, so to save the unit and save your amp probably. When that's activated, the light changes to a blinking yellow or red. You have to be blinking something if it did it to me. Okay, well, here we are around the back, and I can tell you straight off that a lot of this is common sense. Well, who's got common sense these days? A lot of people haven't, which could be good or bad, depending whether it's your gear. Well, let's take it as it comes. Let's go from this one. This is the connector that connects to the speaker, and it has to have at least 4 ohms of impedance. You can see it there, it says on it, in fact. If you don't need to connect the speaker, you just don't use it. You don't have to have a speaker for output. Yeah, that can be very useful, right? But when using a combo amp with an integrated speaker and amp, remove the speaker cable connecting the amp and connect it to the speaker jack. There. Alright? Nice and easy. If the speaker cable isn't long enough, get yourself an extension, but make sure you get the right type of cable, and I'm going to be talking about that in a few moments. Now next along are these line out connections. Yeah, it's good to see this type of connection as well. You can get it out of there off into the desk if you want. Well, you will do, highly likely. And we've got a ground lift, either normal or lifted. And yeah, so we've got a right and a left. So in effect, we're creating stereo, and that can be useful depending on the effects and what you put in the, well, not the FX loop, because I think that's mono, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now this is where you connect your tube amp, and it does say very, very clearly, maximum 100 watts at 8 ohms, right? So you run an 8 ohm amp setup into that. And we've got a switch here, which is very important. It's no use whacking on a 100 watt amp if you go have this set to 10 watts. Is it? Most people would get that, I guess. You must set it to what you should. And as a bit of a guidance, let's say for example you're using 20 watt. You can use either the 10 watt or the 50 watt setting and input the sound. So that's the input sig peak indicator on the front panel. Doesn't light up red. Remember that one on the front? Yeah, you don't want it turning into red, so you can turn it down a bit. Over here we've got a DC in jack, which is a PSB 12U. This is not like the other PSB power supplies that you've seen me using all the time. So this has its own power supply, and it's a more powerful switch mode power supply than most of the regular ones I tend to use for pedals and that sort of thing. So do bear that in mind. Don't go and plug in the wrong power supply, because you're going to end up having trouble. Now interestingly, it's actually got a real MIDI in connector, the old school type, which I like them. I don't like these little messy, useless 2.5 or 3.5mm jack types. I think they're awful, if you want the truth. But there it is, and more about that later, and I'll be showing you a pedal that, well, you can either use that one or one that's very similar. Now next up, you've got a USB there, and you can connect it to a computer or an iPad, an iPhone, or that sort of thing, you know. We'll be talking more a little bit about that later on, and probably even showing it to you, or not. But there it is, and it's good to see that it is a USB-C. And by the way, using cable for this, you want a proper commercial professional cable. You don't want one that's come off your, I don't know, your Apple phone or something. They're not quite the same. Now on this device, this little square thing here does not come as standard. You just have a plug, a rubber plug in there. Well, what is it? Well, it's a Bluetooth adapter connector. You connect the Bluetooth audio MIDI dual adapter, model BT Dual, sold separately, it says in the manual, to wirelessly play back music from your mobile device, such as a smartphone or tablet, or to edit the effects using an app on your mobile device. That's the most important bit, in my opinion. You can use an app with Bluetooth, and for details that's going to be covered a little bit later on. Now there's not much left on the back here. We've got the FX loop. There's a send and there's a return. These things just sort of pull off. You'll see them. Yeah, so you've got your send and return, and we've got a -10 or a +4. As most people know, -10 is a non-professional level, and the +4 is usually a professional level for the audio volume, really. And that's about it, except that you've got one little screw down here, which is for a ground, which you might or might not use. Depends on the application and whether you've got problems. And of course I do want to show you around the side. This is the fan that we were looking at. That's that internal fan that blows air, or sucks air, it's one or the other. Yeah, that keeps everything nice and cool. And I've had this running on the train wreck, in fact, at the train wreck amp from Cherrytown. And it does a marvellous job. And you can actually run that amp completely flat out. Well, you can even talk over it, and it does sound just the same. It sounds very good. But one of the things I wanted to show you is this sticky label that's stuck on here. You can see it there. You might be able to read it on the screen that you're looking at, really. But it does tell you how to protect yourself from damage. As long as you get the cables in the right places and you're using the right cables, you're going to be fine. But those are the things to watch out for. It might tell you other things on there, but in my own experience, I've never really had any trouble with it, and I've used it off and on quite a bit. Okay, well, just before I go any further with this fine specimen of a beast, not me, that. This is the power supply. You'll notice the sort of Roland power supply I normally have. It's a little bit smaller. Well, it's actually quite a lot smaller. So this PS8-1U, you don't want to be using with that, right? Make no mistake. I mean, if I look at this one, it says it's 0.4 of an amp input, but its output's 2 amp. Yeah, 2 amp. And if I look at the, take a look at this one that's supplied with the unit, by the way, you don't have to buy it separate. This one is basically, this is 13 volts at 4 amp. Yeah, 13 volts, not 12 volts, which is a common one. No, it's 13 volts. So the chances are you'll be buying one of these when you lose it. What do you mean you're not going to lose it? I bet you do. And by the way, this one happens to be, from what I can see, because you're very tiny, looks like positive centre. Now, the other thing I want to mention before I go any further is if you're going to connect one of these up, you really need to have a decent speaker cable. Now, I've got, because I've got an Ernie Ball cable here. And this is a speaker cable. It isn't any old cable or just like a guitar lead or anything like that. You don't want to be using any of them with this. What you want is a proper speaker cable. And yeah, they're very different internally. This one's made so well, I just tried to screw the ends off it just to show you the cable. Because it's usually 2 separate conductors. And, you know, that's how it works basically. It hasn't got any coax in there. So, 2 conductor cable. This one actually says on Ernie Ball speaker, if you can even read it. Don't worry if you can't. But I always use this type of cable, and if you don't, you can end up in a right mess, either with the amp or with this or with both. Yeah, you want to stick to what you should do. The problem with this is these aren't threepence each, they're a bit of money. Yeah, just bear it in mind, won't you? Now I've actually got a manual with this one. Now, it's not a very thick manual, it's only about, let's have a look, 12 pages in total. So there's not that much to learn, but do remember on one of these, if you get it wrong, you're getting it wrong big time. So I would read the manual if I was you. It's covering all sorts of things down here, the FX loop, USB-C, how to turn the power on. But, you know, I laugh, but if you've never done this before, it could be a bit daunting. Yeah. Saving a rig, restoring the factory settings, all that sort of good stuff, you know. I mean, it then moves on and tells you about attaching the BT Dual, which I've already done. It's 1 screw, not difficult. You don't need me to tell you about that. At least I hope you don't. Listening to the sound via wireless connection with a mobile device, well, that's good. You could do a bit of practicing, couldn't you, with your headphones on? Don't forget you can do all that stuff. You've got an on and off on the Bluetooth device, by the way. It says here, turn on the Bluetooth function of the mobile device, on or off. Yeah. What else we got in here? You've got a little bit about connecting a already paired mobile device, disabling Bluetooth, controlling this unit from a mobile device app, and you can download that from www.boss.info/ adjusting the volume, blah 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 blah, controlling from an external MIDI. I just want to cover that while we're in passing. Well, sadly, it doesn't actually give you a Roland device or a Boss device that you could connect to. I know there are some. There is a picture of one on there, but I can't read it. It's, yeah, go to the Boss website and start looking, it says, basically. If you've got a MIDI controller of any kind, my guess is that you can plug it in there and you can set it up to control this thing. Now, lastly, I just want to go down the specs to see if there's anything that we've sort of missed. I've already said it handles maximum input power is 100 watts, and do remember that, won't you, because you will fry it if you go much above that. Got a safety load a power off at 330 ohms from the tube amp. Yeah, rated output power to the speaker is 30 watts, 8 ohms. Load impedance to the speaker is 4 to 16 ohms. I won't worry about the rest, it's just basic stuff, and honestly. And that's the end of that manual. It's not a very thick manual. I suppose they do supply one. You got to go to the Boss site to have a look at anything else, and indeed get the app and all that sort of thing. And that's one of the things I'm going to go and do now, is to go and get the app and get it at least loaded so I can at least look at the unit, you know, with its software. I think it's an important aspect, because you want to set these up or not, but if you do, you can store them in there and you probably won't have to come back to it for a fair time. Well, here we are in the Waza Tube Amp Expander Core editor, and this editor, it can be shown on an iPhone. So what have we got? Well, we've got all the usual sort of things in here. We've got the editor there, which looks very familiar. I'm only going to quickly run through it because, well, it's very similar to all the others that are out there. One of the main differences, of course, is you've only got 10 positions, and those are for the 10 positions that are actually on the rig. Yeah, there it is. So let's have a look first of all across the top. We've got this section called cab mic, which literally is the cab and the mic. You can load the cabs in there. Well, very simple. You can load third-party ones, I do believe. I'm glad that's actually around inside the software, as historically some of it wasn't. I'll come back to that in a minute. We've got an editor, which again looks very much like, you could almost be sitting in front of a, I don't know, a GX10 or something. They're all pretty similar. We've got an IR loader that's actually built in, which is what I was talking about, and a lot of people will be happy to see that in there. That can go all the way up to 64 different IRs. We've got a librarian, which once again is so like all the others. It's crazy. Then we've got a sort of menu where we've got all these various things down here on the left that we can actually adjust or use or be what it will. Yeah, so I'm going to close that. These are the rigs, and if you change rigs, well, you don't really see much difference, because what I noticed with it, there are no defaults. They're all the same, so nothing's set up. I would have expected to see something, you know, some examples of the way that they've been set up actually by Roland Boss, and there is nothing. They are all absolutely, as you see, they're all the same, which is a bit painful, really. You haven't even got an example to work to. But not to worry about that. I'm sure we can get around it one way or another. And across this side here, you've got the sort of the channel, the route that things go. We've got a speaker out there, and on this one we've got the line out. So you can see that really, to come in here, you can click that, at least I think you can. Okay, you can't. We've got an FX loop, on or off, SIG, I don't know what that is. Ah, maybe the signal light. Yeah, it is. Compressor, and we've only got two. We've got a VTG rack unit and a rack 160D. That's your compressor. We've got a delay, which is single pan stereo analog, or SDE 3000 even. That's interesting if you click that. Yeah, you can see that they change depending on what you're picking. I'll leave it on single for now. Why not? And we've got a reverb, which again, you've got a whole pile of reverbs. There isn't that many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. But they are there, and you can turn it on and off at the press of a button, as you can with all this other stuff. Yeah. All very simple. See what I mean? Got a speaker EQ. There they are down the bottom. Parametric or graphic. That's a parametric one. Where's the graphic? That's a graphic one. That's more like it. Let's put it back as it was. We've got a line EQ, which looks just the same. Lucky it tells you what it is. We've got a speaker level for the out. We've got a line level for the out. Remember, these can all be stored. We've got a signal out. And we've got a speaker. What else we got here? Don't think you can do anything with them. Well, you might be able to, but I'm not going to spend all day on it because when I set mine up, I'll set it up generally when it's connected to really to the amp. Yeah, can't say any more about that. Well, let's carry on. What else have we got? Oh, you've got an indicator peak clear for when you're peaking out on the input or the output side. Very good. The IR loader's quite boring. Suppose you can load one in. Okay, well, yeah, you can do it. Let's leave it at that. The librarian I'm not going to cover because, well, if I wanted to, I could just stuff them in. I've shown it so many times it becomes boring after a while. I think we'll look at the menu next, because I do want to look at this. There's quite a few things in here, as you can see. USB setting, well, what have we got? Dry out level, input level, output level, mix in level, loop back level, and it's off or it's on. Got MIDI settings, there's usually loads of them, and you can spend a long time messing around with that. If you want to set up one of them foot pedals, for example, I mean, nothing stops you doing that, but, you know, it is a lot of work. Me personally, I don't need to do that, so, but if you do, you need to have the correct CC numbers and all the rest of it, otherwise it'll never work. This is the channel. You can ask, is there an Omni in there? Oh, I don't see one. No. So there. MIDI program map. These are where you map the rig to the PC settings. Yeah, program change settings. That's what that's about. I'm not going through it all because it's just, honestly, it's just far too much to try and explain in a quick short video, which is all it demands really. Got a global EQ, which is nice to know. One for the line out and one for the speaker out. You can see that. You can link them. And then you've got the various parameters that you can change. They're all there. I'm not going to bore you with them. You can see them. FX loop mode. Parallel. I think you can change that. Or not. Foot volume. Pre-effect or main post-effect. I guess that's if you've got the necessary control. Speaker out polarity. You can inverse it. I would have said reverse it, but there you go. Fletcher-Munson curve. Don't even ask me. I don't know. I did learn about it at one stage, but I've been asleep since them days, and it's never really bothered me since. You've got an indicator peak hold for number of seconds that you're setting it up for. Owner's manual, you can download it online and pull it down, but sadly it seems to be a PDF again, at the very least. Device settings, select the device, so was a TAE Core, or you can have it as a door control. Anyway, it's as a controller at the moment, editor. The editor is version 101, but the firmware here is 103, which I updated. It can ramble on down there as much as you like, but I'm not really interested in that. We can also take an all data backup to a file or restore it, but there is no point because there are no factory settings for you to actually work through. No, nothing. So it's a bit boring, that is. Yeah, we've got the ability to write or clear what we're doing on screen, for example. Yeah, and we've got this other section for the cab and mic, and it all looks like they're all pretty much similar. Or maybe not. Or maybe so. I don't see much changing. But there you go. I'll leave it back on 1. There are changes going on as it happens, which thankfully is better than having nothing there. Okay, well, if you look at it, it's either a preset or an IR. Yeah, you can move your stuff around as you want to. I'll leave it on preset for now. We can take the mic and move that around. Yeah, you get it, don't you? We can put it back in its holder. Few adjustments there. You can look at the cab. What can I do with it? Oh, and change the actual cab for all these. Well, these are what are in the system. Yeah. And we can have a sort of second mic, can't we? So we've got 2 of them. Or you could flip that to, I don't know, some other mic. Doesn't really matter. Point is, it's all get-atable. We've got a mix assist for the people that I guess aren't familiar with it. And we've got this thing called airfield. Now the airfield, no, not airfield, you don't come landing with it. It's an airfield, if you can see that on screen. And the airfield has a control knob actually on the front of the unit, if you remember. I'm sure you do. And we've got type, Studio 2, what else can I move? Studio 1 or Studio 2. So there, and we can turn the level up and down. So, yeah, have a read in the book about that. I'm not going to. Oh, pretty boring, I think. So, really, I've run through this really quick, but there isn't really that much to learn about it, I guess. Yeah, so that's the end of the little quick look on the screen. It is interesting, and we can sort of whip off to different ones. Okay, so don't ask me any questions about it. It looks pretty, well, to be honest, it looks pretty boring to me. And stretching this out for 5 minutes, as I have, is just about it. So that's it for now on this one. Okay, so I want you to get a quick view of that. I'm going to say scan on there. It should pick the device up with a bit of luck. Maybe not. Oh, it's already in there. Fancy that. You can see that. I hope you can. And we can do all the things on here that we were looking at earlier. We got the editor. I guess if you turned it sideways, oh, well, fancy that. It doesn't turn sideways. Maybe it does, maybe it's my phone, but normally when I turn sideways like so, things flip around the other way. It might be in the settings somewhere, or not. But you can actually, as you can see, it's a compressor there. And you're moving across the top. So in this section, you've just got the on or off. You've got to hop across these at the top to all the editing. You get it. I'm sure you do. Yeah, so we've got a delay. That's it. We've got a few pages. Page 2, yeah, you've got a page 2. And we've got a page 3 where half of it's in the dark, so to speak. But you get the idea. At least you can do it on a mobile. If you really wanted to, personally, it wouldn't be my favourite way of working, and it probably wouldn't be yours either. So I hope you've got that. It took me 5 minutes to install it, but do remember, to make this work, you've got to buy that £40 Bluetooth add-on for the back of the device, and I think that's a bit of a P-take myself. It could be included in that device for about, I don't know, less than 10 quid or $10. Nobody cares, do they? Well then, okay, I hope that's been a bit of an interesting insight into the Wazza Tube Amp Expander Core. We've had a good look inside. I'm not going to go through the chips because, to be honest, I couldn't get at the most important one in the centre. It's probably like all the other ones that they've got, which is like a sort of system on a chip. You know what it is before you go and look, and the truth is it's made very well inside. Now, the GX10 was really well made as well, and there's quite a lot of them like that, so I'm not too worried about it. It's as far as the hardware is concerned, it's great. I'm not going to expand any further on that. Well, after all, it is an expander. What more can I say? I have already used this device in the other room on the Cherrytone Trainwreck Express, yeah. And of course I've got expander here, well, tube amp expander, but that's the full fat job. I could say something. Don't think I dare in case she hears me. Yeah. Anyway, so what would I do with this? What would I score it at? So what would I score it at? Well, it's a great question. This one's got to have about an 8 out of 10. Well, why an 8 out of 10? Well, there's good reason, because, you know, if you do go and get a 100 watt amp, which a lot of guys have got, you would buy one of these type of devices to, well, quieten it down, for want of a better word. We all know tube amps can be, well, they can get a bit out of kilter. They can blow you out the room. So the logic to this is that, well, it makes it workable. And you can literally talk over a flat out amp. But that's not its problem to me. Its problem to me is two things, two reasons why I wouldn't give it any more than an 8. Number one, because if you've got a 100 watt amp, and this is 100 watts maximum, you could get in a bit of a trouble there, a bit of a problem, if your amp happens to push out 110 watts. Now, I know it's got, what can I call it? It's got internally lots of protection against overheating and that sort of thing. Being overdriven, I suppose, all that stuff. But you're cutting it a bit fine when you've got a 100 watt amp and this can only handle 100. That adds up, in my opinion. That's an important aspect. And when you buy this one over here, that, I believe, is 150 watts. Well, let's put it this way, it's more than this one. That's how I can put that. And the second thing, which has bugged me about this device since the second I set eyes on it, is having to pay £40 for something that should be included inside. Listen, there's no reason you couldn't put that Bluetooth inside that device for about $10 in manufacture or something like that. That is frustrating, and it's the same in a lot of Roland products. I think that GX10 was the same. In fact, it's the same device. So maybe you'd buy one and, well, you couldn't share it, could you? You get what I mean. So for me, those things devalue the product a little bit. What about warranty? Well, warranty's what it's always been with Roland and Boss. I think it's 1 year. I do believe it's 1 year. I could be wrong, but I couldn't really find warranty anywhere. No, nothing about warranty. Nothing anywhere. There might be something somewhere, but well, you've got 1 year at least, haven't you? Or in the UK, if you're in the UK, actually under the law you've got a reasonable period of time. So the 1 year warranty for most ordinary humans is 1 year warranty. So what about a bit of summing up, Tony? Well, this is a device that's around about £600 in the UK. So it's not a hyper cheap device, and you know, you can buy some very cheap, well, some that are not as good as this one, I have to say that, but you can buy some very cheap devices to calm your tube amp down, whether they'll do your tube amp any good, and they're factually not reactive and all the rest of it, and there's no speaker sims and things like that. Well, that's another story. But you have got a lot of pluses with this. You've got 10 settings, and you can switch between the layouts with MIDI and stuff like that. That's great if you want to spend a bit of time doing all that. But it does do another few things that that you might not have considered. You might have an amp that hasn't got an FX loop, and if you use this, you can introduce right around the back there. You saw it earlier, an FX loop that you could switch on and off. Here's my reckoning with MIDI and all that sort of stuff. So it's got that feature. It's got another feature as well, and I'm not sure I mentioned all these things earlier, but I'll just mention a few in passing. If you've got an amp that's only a 20 watt, say you've got a 20 watt Marshall or something, I don't know, there's lots of 20 watt amps these days. But if you needed it to be 50 watts, Well, you can bung the 20 watts into this, and you can fetch out the other side 50 watts if you want to. Or, yeah, or more. I think it does actually go up to 100 watts out. So it's quite interesting that you can take a small amp and make it bigger. It isn't just a question of making a bigger, powerful amp, smaller and quieter. It could be the other way around. I don't know how many think of that, but that's what you can do. It's all interesting, really. And for somebody like me, bear in mind it's a sort of studio environment, this is quite a useful tool. Well, indeed, in the way that that one there is. It does get used, and you know, if you want to get certain tones, you want to get this cranked up, well, you've got to have one of them, I'll tell you that for nothing. But even in the case of that Cherrytone, that Trainwreck Express amp, I can tell you now, it's a 30 watt amp, but it can be very, very loud if you turn everything right up. And you know, I remember Nick saying to me that you turn the master up full, Tony, and turn the rest up and you'll get, you know what I'm saying. So this can be great in that environment, and what I like is that I've got a left and right out. Yeah, and that relates to the reverbs and the delays and the this and the that and the other. Yeah, so it's more than just a limiter, I'll call it that. Now, I have covered a huge amount of things in here over hopefully a relatively short time, but my videos are not always that short, and you know, they cost me a lot of money to complete. So listen, hey, if you haven't subscribed, please do. It costs you nothing to do it. Do that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, ding dong, just like that, and it'll help my channel a little bit to maybe take this further with other new products. And I do review quite a lot of gear over time. I think I'm on about 460 videos in total. It's a lot of gear since 2009, so there's probably so much in there that you might want to see, and you won't see it anywhere else because nobody does reviews like that, do they? And in any case, now we're going to go off and put this, connect it up to an amp in the other room. You're going to hear what it sounds like. Into the desk, by the way. I'm not going to push it through a speaker. Well, there will be for me, but there won't be for you. It'll come straight into the desk, and you'll be hearing exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, no ifs, no buts, no ahs. And I hope the review has been good for you, and you've learned something that maybe you hadn't been shown on those very fast, oh, we've give you one of these, or we'll lend you one, or something like that. Well, they're not real reviews. This is a real review, and I look forward to showing this to you in the showroom any second from now. Okay, well, here we are with the Tube Amp Expander Core. I'm using the Cherrytone Trainwreck Express All Access, and it's actually turned up to full on the master, and it's on about 11 o'clock on the clean channel. And I've got the actual Tube Amp Expander set up on well, it's on rig number 5 at the moment. Yeah, and rig number 5 is basically, it's a total default of how that thing comes in all 10 settings, as I've said before. So if you want to just listen to it, you'll get an idea of, I've got this set about 11 o'clock on the speaker out as well, but it's probably less than it would be by a very long way, so we better clean. Now, hey, listen, don't expect clean out of this on the clean channel, even at 11 o'clock, because you can mark my words, it's very loud. But there it is. I can back it down. But what's important is you don't hear any effects or anything else, because there aren't any on that setting number 5. So what I'm going to do is whiz through to setting number 1, which I did set something up on it. It's actually watchable on my phone right now. At least I think it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And if you look at the delay, you can see there's some things going on with it. And I wish I could turn that sideways. It might be a setting on the phone, but who knows? I couldn't really care. I think once you've got it set up, then it doesn't really matter. So here's the amp running flat out on the master, and about number 11. It's a 30 watt amp, but trust me, it's a very, very loud amp, and it can distort so easy. So that effect is coming out of the TAE Core. Yeah, that's been set up. And I think on the next one, I think I'll bring reverb in and stuff like that. But I just wanted you to hear that that effect is there, even though there's nothing inside the amp. You get the idea. So let's move along to number 2. Setting number 2, that is, or should I say rig number 2 in this case. And you should immediately be able to hear the reverb. All very nice it is too. Remember, I haven't changed any settings except the rig, which I programmed earlier from the phone, by the way. It's a bit awkward, but you can do it. I'll move to number 3. Let's see what we've got on that one. Still on the clean, and I've changed nothing on the amp. Yeah, it's just a reverb. And of course, if I bring it up on this amp, yeah, so you get the idea. Well, at least I hope you do. Let's back that off a bit. And I'm not sure what I did on number 4, if anything. Let's just check. So number 4 is default. So what I'm going to do now is reset the amp and yeah, put it on the drive, and then you can have a listen at it on the drive with the very same settings. And mark my words, when this is on the drive on number 10 on that channel, you would not be in the room. It's flat out, is that amp, and mark my words, it's probably very, very loud. I've turned it right the way down here. So everything you're hearing is coming from that rig number 1 up there, just there. I haven't changed anything else. And of course, I'm only on number 5. If I turn this up, well, let's do that. It's pretty awesome, and it's almost speakable over. I've got it actually on number 11, so on the core. So it is pretty loud. It's recordable at that. So let's move on to rig number 2. I think this one's just reverb or just delay, aren't they? This one's actually both. It's reverb and delay. So let's just do the same thing. I'll back this off. Let's bring it up full. Like I said, it's very loud. Let's move on to the next one, and I think the next one is reverb only. A very nice sounding it is too. And up to full. So I hope you get the idea of that. It's a bit like the old one, but I'm a little bit frustrated that there's no controls on the front. You've got to use your phone to mess with things if they're not set up. You might well set them up prior, but, well, you might not. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. I'm not going to play anything because it is what it is. It's just effectively a power reducer, isn't it? Until next time, don't forget to subscribe, will you? Now get out of here.